So Kevin is not here yet, but he may join us. He didn't send an email saying he couldn't. Unless I misunderstood last time, unless there's something else in the school tonight that he has to cover. It just said that he was
He
busy.
works. I think he works every
He worked
shift.
and stuff too, sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
at the school.
oh, okay.
Custodial, like,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, that I didn't
I
know.
don't know if he's covering. I don't know if
Oh.
he's doing it permanently or not, but yeah. it's
I didn't know. I thought he
Yeah.
was just up at, what's it called, on Greenwood, but he worked there.
I'm not also, but he was covering at the school.
Fair enough. Okay, so last time we met, Bill, I'm sorry that,
I'm sorry, we didn't hear it.
no, we appreciate your assistance. So what was presented to us last week has not actually been discussed by the select board, but and it has presented to us the possibility of, and it's up to us to see, try to figure out, make a recommendation back and stuff, whether or not it makes sense to bundle a number of infrastructure and other capital expenditures into a bond. It would include, let's see, the fire truck replacement, it would, culvert repair, transfer station compactors and other upgrades, pads, cans, and retaining wall. An LED lighting proposal, and then obviously bond fees that are associated with it. Everything else would come out of CIP and general taxation is what was offered.
And the bonding was close to $1 million, it's 900 and something
Yeah, it was
thousand.
just shy under $1 million.
That you can find on your last sheet of the stapled copies.
What's our thought of rate, not fixed in stone, but what's the interest rate?
She said she had it, yes, but she thought she didn't have it.
We hadn't spoken with bond counsel yet to get an official number, but she had one that she did some research.
And I don't recall what the actual rate was, but she worked out, you can see on page 2, a grand total payment schedule for what she anticipates for bond payments, and then also the additional money that she would suggest putting into the CIP for, payments that would, for all, the all-encompassing CIP payment every year.
Debt service, she's estimating, these are still just estimations. First year, 110,000, down to 108, goes down incrementally, all that incrementally
I'm
each
sure you
year.
waiver a little bit.
I would definitely think so. She was also going to check, and I don't know if she has a chance to, or even want to check with citizens,
I
with
need
the
to
government
check,
affairs
and I have not.
division. Because
That,
the thought was if we went with our loan to via the, through our bank, the Citizens Bank, it would be for a small amount of money. It would be a lot more than the bond. The assumptions are up to is it 2.5 or 2 3/4 on a bond?
something in that range. So it seems like a non-starter.
But unless we actually ask the question, is it whether or not there are alternative rates.
Right, and it just
with
seems to
bank.
me to be due diligence for the conversation
Right.
in March.
Right.
Someone would ask that question.
Will
Right, and we should do
For
that.
sure, so we need to at least get some facts.
Definitely. So that's something to look at. I mean, I have, first of all, with the exception of maybe the LED lighting proposal, which it does have its merits, but I wouldn't necessarily say is driving force on efficiencies on this proposal. But there are a number of items that are in dire need of repair, specifically around the transfer station, and they have, there's the potential for a reduction in hauling costs if we get the new cans. So I would say, and the compactor rather. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. Does it rise to the level of being a bond? I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
The cans particularly, because they're smaller dollar amounts.
And to be fair though, in the bond, you can schedule what you pay off first.
Right.
So you never want to take out a bond you can't take out a bond for longer than the life expectancy of the item that you're buying.
Yeah.
Right, so the can, they're not gonna last 12, well, they could last 12 years, doubtful, right? But, so then we would pay those off first. Fire truck, better last 12 years, better last a lot longer. But, so that way there was some wiggle room there when you deal with bond counsel. But, again, I'm very concerned with, it makes sense to bundle in the sense that we potentially save money. I think that it might be a really hard sell personally at town meetings to try to get folks to understand why they would want to take this approach. It's a very, very large number. In my mind, we've taken out large amounts of money in the past, but it's been for a item, to refurbish this building, to do something at the school. I mean, it's not, the addition not for the kindergarten, that was a bond, right? So that, I mean, things like that, I think people can, it's easier for people to understand, I think. I get that too, but there's no argument there, but I was wondering if there's another way to.
Well, I guess my other thought too is, I mean, it's somewhat common knowledge that we have kicked the can down the road for way
That's
too
true.
long.
That is true.
And all of this stuff is coming home to roost, and we need to take care of it. And to me, this is a way to get a large chunk of it done in one fell swoop and get us back on track to being where we need to be in terms of maintenance and taking care of things. So I see this as, I mean, I kind of like this. I have the same response you did with LED lighting. I'm like, really? Because it's.
There are cost savings associated with it,
Yeah.
for sure.
But it may make sense to do it,
Can you explain what that is, though? I'm not really.
it's just more
understanding.
efficient lighting, I guess.
Building
Like
lighting?
in here,
Building
the
lighting.
firehouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not in the proposal that we received, we went with that one, not the highway department because the size of the lighting.
Mhm.
But, in all the
It's
government
all
building,
like
it's just retrofitting. So it's the cost of just, it's the bulbs are expensive,
Mhm.
and the fixtures, but.
So that could be something that could be separated into its own warrant article, because it is something that
Yeah.
could perhaps weight down the rest of
It
this
should.
warrant article.
But it's my understanding, if I understood her correctly, you have to at least bond $1 million.
And so-
Right? I thought that's what the case was. However, in that theory, we could move another project up and that one down that was hitting CIP.
Yeah. that's
So, we could do it and still stay in the $1 million.
If we want to sell this, then I guess that would be a suggestion that we identify everything that we really think is important to do and put that up under the bond, and the other stuff that's not as important, we push down. Just part of for the reason is not to give, not to let it seem like there's frivolous items. And I don't mean
No.
that efficient lighting is frivolous, but, it should be the
I think
highest.
we
It's a little bit
want to
more
avoid the
discretionary,
appearance
I
of,
think.
here's your Christmas tree, what can you add to it? I mean, the concrete patch, for instance, at the transfer station, our insurance carrier has been telling us for quite a while now that you're supposed to have something underneath the scratch pad.
And when they inspect it, that's the first thing.
In
They write a
environmental services, OSHA, whoever, which one it is, DES.
DES.
I've been telling us also that we need to have this pad. And if
Mhm.
you're gonna get the new compact, you're obviously gonna wanna put that on the
That
pad.
has to be on.
So,
And
It's
the
like a whole
culverts,
package thing.
450,000 is what we're talking about? Or did that get worse?
No, that's the-
well,
budget.
worst case scenario is 850. We heard last month. Yeah.
Well, the
Of course, that
450
is
those are insurance.
not having to,
Oh.
that's worst case, you can't slip line a number of them, you have to put in the box culverts almost to the level of bridge. I think most of us hope that that's not the case, but, and that we can, there are other solutions. But we did ask, what integrity was the absolute worst case scenario, so we knew what we were dealing with. I think we may go back and ask them for additional, I know we're gonna ask for additional information, so
So I think in this
fast, I guess, on that one.
warrant article and in, so in this bond, you know, maybe the recommendation is bond or not bond, and then work separately on, what it includes, and that's like playing with language so that we have a little bit of flexibility, I think. I would favor the LEDs in a separate warrant article myself, because although I like the idea of it, I think it's gonna weight this down, because it's a little bit more discretionary. But because of the culvert situation being so variable, I think that could end up wiping most of this warrant article out just by itself.
For sure.
And we don't know that yet. And we have 3 years to spend the money. So we have time to figure out how to allocate the money. So I think the flexibility is in the wording, and it's just in how you sell people in.
The fire truck
The intent.
also, I mean, I would suggest to the select board and the fire chief that if it's just a part of this package, that it's probably a backup plan if the bond doesn't go through, of at least to own someone, so he needs to bring us another option. He was working on that, and then we were presented with this last week. But I still think we need to have other options on the table. And until we have that, it's difficult to proceed on this, to be honest, in my mind. I mean, that could be part of the recommendation too, to the select board that perhaps remove the LED lighting, the dollar amount for the culvert repairs. The repairs hold true to what we were told the other night. It's definitely going to need to be increased, so I wouldn't worry at all about removing LED lighting to make the mark, but suggesting also that there be backup warrant articles to deal with all the other issues as well. But maybe not every single one, but a variety.
So,
Sorry.
well, I was just gonna ask you a question for you.
Oh, okay.
Can you clarify that the $300,000 for culverts on the standalone sheet,
Yeah.
that's for the double one on Sligo, Willie, and Pine,
Yeah.
and it's 300 plus 50, but then down below estimated capital expenses,
Right.
it lists culvert replacement as 70,000. I don't remember why.
Trying to find it on.
But
In the
then
middle.
on the top, it says plus 50K from reserve fund. So is that 50K the 70 and it should be 70K?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, that was my question.
I think it's a separate project or a separate
She's
something.
suggesting putting in money into the culvert fund separate from the warrant article, or from the bond bill? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, it says 300 and plus 50K from
Yeah.
reserve fund, but
Yeah.
reserve fund shows down here, I'm thinking she's talking CIP reserve.
Mhm.
I don't see a $50,000 entry, except I see the 70.
Mhm. And then zero, yeah.
And so I think that is 70, not 50, is what I was saying, but maybe not, I don't.
And I don't remember what she said about that.
Now, point of clarification on the process of when you go for a capital item as a warrant article, do you vote for the warrant articles all first and then you say you're bonding them? Or do we say that this is gonna be a bond and you vote it,
Financed by,
and this is gonna be a bond financed by, and then the total equals the million? So you have to do them all separately. Is that correct?
I believe Suzanne's into
It's
what
been
the
a long time
proposal
since
was.
I've done a bond.
Was intending to do it all together, I don't know.
and that I think is a worthy discussion, but I think it is all in one text. We're gonna do this, that, and the other thing, funded by whatever method. It's typically one warrant article and one language, you know.
So you're saying
How it's
that
funded is
all
usually
of
in there.
this, all of this stuff is gonna be in one warrant article, and then you're saying the
what
funding
she's-
is
she's
by,
suggesting.
That is Suzanne's current suggestion, but that is what Mike and I are trying to express
That's-
concern
yeah,
about,
that's
like with the
risky.
truck that has
Yeah.
to happen.
because I thought you had to do them separately, and then you vote by bond, but we've never had this many projects before, so I'm not
Right.
sure I don't know if I really
And that's
understand that
why
correctly.
Suzanne was gonna reach out to bond council to try to determine that,
Yeah,
and as of Monday night she had. but
Yeah.
I don't know what she's done this week, and she
Yeah.
wasn't available this evening.
and a bond, you have to have a certain amount of votes, is it 3/5 or?
66%.
66% or something like that, yeah.
Is it 2/3?
One call, not gonna happen.
2/3 or 60%?
And it's 2/3, so I'm gonna look up.
Yeah, but it has to be more than
It's more
50%
than
for
50.
sure.
It's either 60, 66.
I'm pretty sure it was 66.
So, what can happen, however, it needs to happen at time, if it fails, has to be brought up back immediately, because this is where I have been thrown under the bus 1,000 times, and when I got the fire alarm system into the grade school. I did it after new business, and everyone left, because there was a bond. So a reconsideration of having it by taxation, or reduce something out of it, would have to happen immediately. That would be one plan, if it failed, of all of it together.
Well, the other thing is, you know, like the school has this, like, you know, does their warrant article for the budget, and then often has a second warrant article for if that fails, do you want to reconsider this or
Yes.
that, you know?
Well, and yes, well, that's true, they do, you're right. So you could do that immediately following, in the event that
Like
Article number
plan-
5 failed.
Plan warrant
Article
articles.
6 would
Like-
say, do you want to have this go by taxation, or what, you know, and then all of those projects would be done by tax.
Well, but also
Or,
they
or
got-
could be modified.
Could be modified.
Yes,
Change
yes,
language.
they could take out LED lighting, or fire truck, or whatever,
Yes.
reduce the dollar amount, and then have it go by taxation.
So reduce the dollar amount, though, like you said, I think you can bond less than $1 million, but it's not necessarily advisable. $1 million, my understanding, is the threshold. Like, it's the line in the sand where it starts to make more sense to bond rather than get a loan. Smaller amounts, you know, the fees are higher, loan amount, you know, the interest rate is lower, fees are higher, and then it switches.
Oh, okay.
So that the
Okay.
higher amounts tend to make more fiscal sense as bond, whereas smaller, you tend to work out better with your fees, better with
A
loans.
vote to issue bonds or notes in New Hampshire requires a two-thirds ballot.
Two-thirds.
So does the Board of Selectmen need to have town meeting approval to take a loan out? Not a bond, but a loan? They do, okay.
The other thing, I'm sure we don't know now, but we
Well, I
should,
shouldn't say that. If there are certain circumstances where we can borrow against fund balance, and we did that, I had to do that last year, or the year before last, with COLA, where there's a process we have to go before the budget committee.
That was an emergency
And
situation.
that was an emergency, but there are ways that.
That was an emergency
So, it's not a
procedure.
traditional loan, but there's a.
Well, but that was an emergency procedure, I don't think you could plan to do that.
No, of course not. No, but
Yeah.
you're saying, you're asking the general question, are there
Yeah, in
ways?
general, yeah.
In emergencies, there are, but not plan. You can't plan an emergency, nor should you be able to.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
people will want to know what the impact on the tax rate is for the $100 bonds.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, and that's something I think we need to be prepared to.
But the tax rate would be far
For the payment
less,
schedule.
based on the payment schedule. Instead of paying $450,000 up front, you're gonna pay
Right.
$100,000. The tax impact is gonna be
Yeah.
far less.
Yeah, right.
So that's what you need to sell.
Exactly.
You know, for each year, you're gonna have that payment going for 12 years,
Yeah.
but the hit on the taxes is gonna be far less than if you did it all in once.
Mhm.
And that's what, you're right, that has to be clearly put out there
Yeah.
before the bond.
We would anticipate a $2 increase on the tax rate if the fire truck wasn't bonded, if it was just straight
Hey.
taxation.
Yeah,
That's a
Yeah.
big deal.
yeah.
Not really an acceptable
Mhm,
amount to, so,
mhm.
nor do I think anyone else around the table.
And I think that's, we have to say that.
It
has to be
We say, look, you
clearly
know,
put
if
out
we-
there.
We do this
Yeah.
straight up, it's gonna be a $2 increase if we do it.
I mean, there are
over a bond,
additional
it's gonna be-
factors as well. I mean, so if there are those that can say, well, we just don't do anything, we just wait. And that is
That's enough.
one way, one option, sure. So if something happens to the fire truck, it goes out of service.
When?
If and when it goes out of service, we need to figure out exactly what that means to our homeowners insurance rates. Then we'll then be out of full, out of compliance. And we all take a ding on our property insurance. So what does that, what is the offset?
Plus
Between the two, I mean.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Quite a bit too, but I'm
Yeah.
one.
Right.
So we would need to be prepared for that, and that eventuality also. Our municipal fiscal. So, I mean, there's a variable factor as to why it would probably make more sense to move forward at this point, but until we get all the answers,
Then I almost wonder if we seek the bond and say, look, we're gonna do the truck and the culverts, those two items, because we don't know how much the culverts are gonna be.
Well, but I think, I agree with you, but I think I would like to do something more like that, but to phrase it with some flexibility that says public safety vehicles to include a fire truck and, you know, culvert and infrastructure projects to include,
I don't know.
So then you
I
can-
don't think you can.
I think
so.
you
Can
have
you
to be
not?
very
Yeah.
clear of what you're paying this for.
Yeah, because I see what you're
because
saying.
then we're, like, I'm concerned about not hitting the $1 million and then we're either not qualifying for a bond or we're not doing a fiscally better thing by getting a bond.
Mhm.
Yeah, but what about, what were you thinking about the transfer station stuff? If you just do them to,
I would rather do them in separate warrant articles
Yeah.
or an operating budget.
really?
Yeah,
Well, some
we'd have
of
to-
Some
them
of them you wouldn't be
Talking-
able to.
I would prefer to do the
Correct.
cans in the operating budget.
We have to piecemeal that, you know, and ask for these things, but the culverts scare me, quite honestly. It's
Oh, yeah?
gonna be big bucks. You know, I think we have to do them.
You know, I think, you know, me personally, I think Oil and Tanner should be able to give us closer numbers than $200,000.
Well, and how they
Yeah.
get done is very out
Yeah,
there still, I
they
think.
should be able to tell us, hey, we done a hydraulics, this is what we're gonna need, not, well, you may need this, or you may need that, you know, you're not talking $10,000 difference. They're throwing $300,000 margins out there, but to me, when you're hiring an engineer company, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get a much firmer idea what that's gonna be.
By the
So-
time-
But
So now the next round, the question for Wellington was to go and actually do the hydrologic test.
Hydraulics.
Hydraulic.
Hydraulics. That wasn't the initial question. So what is the worst case? What costs? Everything goes wrong. And everyone has got us. Now we like to proceed and see what the capacity is. Is it, are you actually candidates for something? Or something else? And so that's what we're going to do. All part of a larger plan. So that's Suzanne has worked out with them. So,
I mean, ideally, I'd like to see all the transfer station stuff get done too under it, because I think, to me, it makes sense to put it all in one, you know, bond, because we haven't done this stuff for years, and it's catching up with us, and it gives us the opportunity to catch up. It gives us a good price. It's not a hits on the tax rate, it's spread out over time, and, you know, it's stuff we need.
And it takes a whole bunch of stuff off of your CIP,
Yeah.
so then you can properly fund CIP going forward at a reasonable rate.
well, I think that's also
That's-
part of Suzanne's proposal.
Mhm.
But I don't believe it was necessarily clear as to how much we can really start saving in the,
Well, payment schedule on page 2.
right, the debt service is one, is separate. I mean, that's why that's the money you're gonna have to pay every year. So, it's for 12 years, right? So what are we anticipating? Where's the line? She does not have it on.
270, isn't it? Didn't say, oh, no, that's what's in. Oh, no, that's not.
So there isn't built into this. There's future years, other sources. So if we go, where's the total?
You know, the very last page.
It's just the last page, future, okay. So she has, not broken down by department yet. So, future years, other sources, we would be putting in, into the CIP reserve fund, right along with this, a grand total of $270,000 by the end of what's on the schedule, which is 2026.
But 2026 is not the end.
No,
of it.
no.
That doesn't
need
sound-
another
That's
2
what's in
years
the
on top of
reserve.
that. We need
So
to
she's
go-
not bringing anything. If that's the case, I mean, you have to go back and look at every single line, so.
Well, I think those are just totals, not the what's going into it. The what's
She
going
said she
into it is on
was.
page
I
2
thought
of the
she said she
payment
was,
schedule.
that's the point.
Well, but if you look at the payment schedule on the bottom of page 2, like she's got the bond payment.
Right.
Okay.
And then underneath that, I think she's mirroring that with what she's intending to put
Into
in
CIP.
CIP, so that you get the grand total line.
And then she forgot to add that on there because she doesn't have,
Because the total, I see what you're saying.
she wasn't a little clear.
If I understand this correctly, they're putting in 187,900. On page 2 of, the other sheet, for 2017, this is what's going into the fund by categories. That's the total, right?
Yes.
17.
Well,
So that's what she's
so
proposing to put in there.
187, no, well, no, 187 is how much you are spending, I think, that is not included in the bond, because the rest of that
This
is.
is how much you're putting away each year.
Yes,
So,
but here's your column where that's how much you're spending.
no, I don't think so. I think that's what she's saying, that we're gonna have to budget to put away. Because what she's saying is
Oh, that's what I mean, I'm
22.5,
sorry, that's what I
yeah.
mean,
So that's
yes.
what she's putting into the fund as well as the bonding for, so the line to be put in CIP, if I understand this correctly, is 187.9
For 2017.
for 17.
Just for seven.
I think I
Right.
agree with you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then 2,204 and 18, because these will be adjusted going later.
Right, because it goes down to
Right.
110 and the rest is debt service.
Right.
Right. Which, and the
Oh, so
idea
it would
with that
be-
is
it
to
would
keep
be-
the
yeah,
payments
you're
more
right.
level.
Right.
That, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So,
So I think she was, how I interpreted it is, she's planning on putting 187,000, almost 188,000.
187 and
Yeah.
debt service is anticipated at 110, is that right?
Yes,
in the
110
following year.
yeah, 18.
And then in 18, 110. So the question is, this approach, look at each line individually again, but I don't think it was clear to me the last time when she presented it, what we're able to,
Please do leave it open, because we're in a, yes, thank you.
what we're saying. Sorry, I'm just thinking about that. What I don't want to see happen is for us to fall behind again. That's my concern.
And that's what I was trying to express at our last meeting. I'm feeling like the pinnacle of payments around 2021 and 22 is quite a bit for what we don't even know yet about what other things are gonna happen.
Well, exactly, right? So, let's just say for City of Harlem, our very expensive plow truck goes down earlier than anticipated.
Never understood that. Give or take 5%.
I mean, there's always knows there's something else. Of course, then again, I mean, the other side of the coin is if we don't do anything, it's only going to keep getting worse.
So, but the big driving force for this whole bond conversation is the fire truck.
Mhm.
And that, we weren't talking about a bond before we started talking about the fire truck.
Right.
So,
Correct.
I feel like we're on a fine line with, it makes sense because we're already spending $500,000 anyway. We might as well spend another $500,000 because we certainly have places that need it. The other side of it is, if you can put a fire truck in a lease-to-own program or some other, make it happen in another way, then I would rather pay cash for things and put money into the CIP than have other, you know, debt service or other random things.
I agree with that, but I think there's a problem allocating money or appropriating money for years going forward, and that's why we stopped leasing police vehicles. Is that not true?
There is a legality issue there that,
Because we can't, what's the term?
Obligated future
Obligate
forward.
future monies or future years.
but people do this all the
I
time.
know, I don't understand it
I was
because,
gonna say, there's a lot of, even like public works, there's a lot of public works that, you know, if they roll a truck over in the middle of a
Well,
storm,
they
and
need a
they
bond.
destroy $160,000, they're leasing another truck because they weren't expecting.
So
Even
the,
a bond itself is that same contract idea, you know?
It's weird.
You're still obligating these future bond payments.
yes,
It's
but
the same
because
principle.
that's why you have to have the 2/3. And also you have to have it as a warrant article each and every year of the 12 years.
So what do
If
you
you-
do when it fails?
It
So,
comes
and
out
I
of
think,
general, it comes
well,
out of your budget
and I think-
regardless, because you're still obligated to pay
well,
it.
exactly, and I think the cruiser was the same way.
Yeah, see,
the municipal
Something happened
association
and I
did tell
can't
us that there
remember.
are ways to do multi-year contract. The warrant article has to specifically express that it can be.
Yeah, there's
multi-year
something in there that
contract.
says it's like non-lapsing or
Yeah,
something.
And I-
There are ways to do it. I'm not sure
it's got
why
to
they
be
stopped
because,
doing the lease that way, but
It's like,
We're short
there's a
there.
lot of towns that do multi-year contracts with paving. And then like every fourth year, they'll bid it out to make sure they're still on track.
and that right now.
But if you, like, you know, just say, if
I'd like to see us get to that.
Brock's
too.
or Pike or whoever you use is securing work for next year already through us, then we're gonna get a lot better rate
Right,
than if we're,
because you're bidding more projects into one
Exactly.
single bid.
I'm not sure that actually we were allowed to do that under select board form of government. You might be able to do that under town council or city council to do that.
Yes.
But I don't think we're actually authorized to do that. We were allowed to do multi-year leases for vehicles. They said there's a certain way you have to phrase the warrant. That much I remember, but I don't think we could. In fact, we talked about that almost 3 years ago. It's just not possible under our form of government. So almost to vote, we go to town council, we have an argument, but a conversation.
But with the fire
Not here,
truck,
but-
Yeah, I'm
if
not
you
sure.
leased one for lease to own, or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
your payment would be almost the same as your bonding payment per month.
Well, that's the
Just for
thing,
that
I mean,
one thing.
well, and that's what I mean about how we're on this fine line, because of the interest rates. So if we're toggling with this $1 million figure, where below that, we're gonna pay probably double the interest rate,
Yeah.
and our payments are
That's
not
why I
gonna
want
be.
Mark to find that out for us,
Mhm.
so we can say, okay, well, if we don't take this approach,
What's
that,
your-
all you're gonna get is this one fire truck, you're actually gonna spend more in
Mhm.
interest, that overall payment.
Right, and I think we all need to understand, I need to
I think
understand
we
that
do need to
before I
understand
can
that as well.
be recommending.
So, in concept, let's just speak in concepts for a moment. Are we comfortable recommending to the select board that they bundle a number of items for a bond?
I am
I am.
comfortable with that. Because I think it's the only way we're gonna get all of this stuff done and start fresh.
Well, it's the only way we're gonna hit the $1 billion mark.
Mhm. Right.
Well, we don't have to hit the $1 billion market,
Million.
Million.
whoa.
Million dollars.
Any more projects I haven't
No,
known about?
no, we're not. If there isn't a desire, though, to even bundle it to begin with, it's a moot point. So whether you hit the market, don't hit the market. If people aren't comfortable with that approach, it's not worth even continuing the conversation. So at least I can report that back. I still think there are a number of unanswered questions regarding the lend to lease, not lease, lend to own, lease to own.
Lease to own.
I'm buying all this work, not lending. That's one thing I think we need to know.
Mhm.
That's important information. I think we assume, I think that's probably a strong assumption actually, that it doesn't make financial sense, but we should have that information. There are other pieces of the CIP though. Are we comfortable with the list of priorities the way they have been presented to us? We don't have to recommend them in that order.
This was the order that the department had said it was, right?
Yep. That doesn't mean that we have to approve that. I tend to think that we should trust our department heads, but,
That's kind of what I was, they're the ones that know
it is,
mostly.
they are the people in the front lines of dealing with these issues, and they, I think, told me a good case as to why they should be in that order.
Mhm.
But we should still have that conversation if we want comfortable with it. We should talk about it.
I'm comfortable with it.
So, do you have any objections to the order?
No.
Okay, so the remaining questions is, two remaining questions. Are we just going to say to the select board, yes, we recommend going forward in the manner you want to go forward? Or should we wait to find this other piece of information and we present them more of a concrete package of what they should be doing?
Well, you have to start working on your budget.
We do.
So
We are
I-
meeting
Yeah, I saw that something came up.
next week.
I think that
After next.
we need to react to what we have, what we know today,
Mhm.
and if additional information comes, you can modify your budget requests for a period of time. So this is what you know today. You don't, the unanswered, you may not have enough of an answer
Yeah.
to put you in with your
So
timeline.
our first budget workshop will be next Thursday,
Yeah.
6 PM already. The budget committee itself meets the night before, right? To start discussing things, so.
No,
No,
No.
we're not meeting till the end of
October.
October.
October
Last week
28th,
in
I think.
October.
Right, sure.
And then we don't start budget processing until November.
Right.
Wow, that's late this year.
So your next, the budget committee doesn't meet again until that
the last,
last week in October, second to last week in October?
Last week.
It's the last week. yeah.
last week.
Almost to at least like.
Okay, so there's still some time at least for the select board to, so do we want to just make that sort of general recommendation this evening then? And, or do we want to meet again next week?
I don't think you'll have enough information to meet again next week, to be honest with you. If you want to, as a select person on the board, contact Mark and said, give us another alternative. You know, if it's not bonded, what can you do?
Right.
You need it, can we finance it, and let him do the
We've
legwork
asked for
for
that
you.
information.
And
Takes
tell him,
time.
yeah, it takes time, agreed, but the sooner the better for him.
And I'd like
you know.
to see us push the engineers for the culvert work and say, you know, get us.
We are doing
We need some
you know, give us
firm,
They're coming back with
Right,
this.
about this, you know,
Yeah.
this lag here.
but I think all of that takes more time, and us meeting won't
Exactly.
help it.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
my suggestion is move forward, how we are, how we're proposing it, and until we get additional information.
Are you comfortable with that?
And as soon as we do get that information, let's, you know, if we have to get back together, or we communicate.
Right.
If you could just let the
Email
board
or
know that we
something.
would like to have the opportunity to offer a revised recommendation later when there's more
Well,
information.
Based on, yeah.
But this is the best we have at the moment, based on the information we have. But we think we might have a better recommendation should we receive this additional information. But we have to do something, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah,
If we don't, I think it's going to put us further behind the eight ball than we already are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have,
And
we have
then-
stuff at the transfer station
Yeah.
that isn't gonna last, I mean, it's running on one light now.
Well, and also, we've had several residents, have trouble and/or actually trip
Oh.
and/or complain about the paving, and the paving is really necessary.
Rough shape over there for sure.
And that is one of the bigger expenses.
but in your next
Over there.
3 weeks or whatever it is for you guys during your budgeting process, and until you know what your total impact is for your entire budget, that again is something that really needs to be taken into consideration, because there might be something that you find out in your next 3
Right.
workshops, that there's even a bigger thing that's
It's all
looking over
relative,
us.
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so until you do the whole thing.
I see a loss suppression system for the.
Oh, that's just absolutely nuts, isn't it? I can't tell you how many cans of spray we have bought to,
Lots of, the least of our worries, bug infestation at the moment in town.
yeah, until somebody gets stung and they're stroking out there.
$600 every time.
Yeah, they're very expensive. Anyways, anything else you want to talk about? Thank you very much. I'll report that back to the select board.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'll let you all know as soon as I hear back from Mark. So we'll meet again, if we feel like we need to meet again.
Mhm.